Hola, comrades. Today's topic of interest, Pokemon Battle Revolution. At a certain point in your childhood, you come to a threshold. You're excited about something, and you want it so badly that you ache. You yearn for it. You dream about it. You count down the days until you can have it. And then you get it, and it's not what you expected. Not at all. It doesn't have to be bad, but it's not as good as you thought it would be. Refusing to accept this, you tell yourself you like it, while searching for hidden secrets that will make it live up to your expectations. But eventually, you're forced to realize that you are wrong, and you're never the same from that point onwards. For me, that something was Pokemon Battle Revolution. Released in America in June of 2007, this game is ostensibly an update to the Pokemon Stadium games released on the Nintendo 64. When I saw it advertised in Nintendo Power, I was enthralled. It was the single most beautiful Pokemon game I had ever seen. I was 7 when I saw it, and 8 by the time I received it as a Christmas present. Though I accepted that it would not be like the grand adventures I had embarked on in Gale of Darkness and Colosseum, I thought it would be like Stadium, and I would be able to sink hundreds of hours into it. The models looked so good, and the dreamlike, vibrant city in which the game took place mystified me. To a certain extent, I was right. The game did look incredible. It's still the best looking Pokemon game ever released. It's one of the best looking games on the Wii. The colors are so brilliant, from the saturated pinks and yellows of Gateway Colosseum, to the poetic oranges of Sunset Colosseum, to the furtive blues of Crystal Colosseum. The aesthetic is certainly where all the effort went. The music tracks are some of my favorite in the series. So much work went into every single piece. They capture the color and energy that has defined the series' music since its inception, while also adding a more opulent swing to it. Even the screen where you enter your name has one of the shiniest, catchiest, most upbeat tunes I've ever heard. Take a listen for yourself. Before Pokemon X and Y introduced trainer customization, it was offered in Battle Revolution. The points you win from competing in challenges can be spent buying hundreds of different items. You can change your hat, your glasses, your shirt and pants, etc. It's not a world-changing feature, but it is a nice touch, and it adds to the overwhelming gloss of the game. Transferring Pokemon from the handhelds to this game and battling in 3 glorious dimensions is just resplendent. From the animations of the moves to the shouts of the announcer, it's a great experience. But beneath that gleam, there's not much. I'd be hard-pressed to call this a bad game. It's far from the worst Pokemon game, if only because there are more middling to terrible Pokemon spin-offs than I can count. There was a game called Pokemon Dash that was this bizarre racing game that controlled abysmally. There was a game called Pokemon Channel where the entire game is you watching TV with Pikachu. I'm completely serious. I played way too much of that game as a kid. But even the Pokepark games offer these lush worlds to explore and mini-games to play. Battle Revolution is a poorly named game. A more appropriate title, perhaps, would be Battle Stagnation, or Battle Atavism, or Battle Cash-In, or Battle Regression. It's obvious that a lot of hard work went into making the game look great. I will fully admit that. But there's no ambition. There's no desire to push boundaries. It has the depth of a long and detailed Pokemon commercial. This is less Pokemon the compelling game series, and more Pokemon the multimedia juggernaut. I won't deny that I have nostalgia for Battle Revolution. I liked it as a child, and I won't deny that I still play it every now and then. It's very flashy. The fact that there were no real Pokemon games released for the Wii U only made me miss this game more. But let's be honest, I felt slightly ripped off even as a kid, and as I've grown, the failures of this game have only become more apparent. That they did not make another Ore game after the relative underperformance of Coliseum and XD disappoints but does not surprise me. If they wanted to return to the Stadium template, so be it. But that is not what this was. While the Stadium games were by no means masterpieces, they were surprisingly robust. The mini-games were quite addictive, but the real focus was in the main Stadium modes, where you could battle in tournaments held under a variety of conditions. There were 4 difficulty levels too: Pokeball, Great Ball, Ultra Ball, and Master Ball. The upper difficulties were challenging, and some of the battles were nearly impossible with the pool of Pokemon you were provided. And let's talk about that rental pool. Unlike in Revolution, where you are merely given an option to choose one of 6 passes with a select assortment of Pokemon, in Stadium, you're given a large pool of Pokemon, and asked to compose out of them a team of 6 for the tournament. These Pokemon are more balanced than you would expect, so the Pokemon that seem better might not actually be better. There are Pokemon in the pool with strong stats but terrible moves. There were also Pokemon in the pool that had amazing top-tier moves, despite being overlooked even unevolved Pokemon. There was thus a strategy in using the rentals that led to a lot of replayability. This is completely missing in Revolution. There is also no equivalent in the game to the Gym Leader Castle from Stadium. As a little kid, the idea of marching up a line of structures into the dark clouds at the top was suitably ominous and eerie. I wanted to reach the top, though I was a little scared that the next challenge was going to be too much for me to endure. Every challenge in the castle is like a mini tournament. You have to defeat the gym trainers, then the gym leader, without incurring a single defeat if you are to emerge victorious. For the first few challenges, this is easy, but then it gets harder, and the gym leaders have much better and more diverse teams than they do in the mainline games. And even though their teams do favor one type, they have great counters for the weaknesses of that type. It's a slog, but it's rewarding. I remember how great it felt when I defeated Claire's Kingdra in Stadium 2 on Easter morning after days of struggling. Of course, the castle and all the tournaments are easier if you transfer in Pokemon from the old Game Boy games, but it's not as though the rental Pokemon are completely useless. It's a challenging game, but it's a very rewarding one. Battle Revolution is fine for multiplayer, but it lacks any sort of single-player story. You go around the different Coliseums and win. That's it. There's no strategy. It's not very interesting. It's a bare-bones Pokemon experience at best. If you want to watch Pokemon from the first 4 generations fight in gorgeous set pieces, this is your game. If you want anything more, don't expect this game to deliver. It's appalling that somehow it features less content than the Stadium games released almost a decade prior. But why am I talking about this game? It's one of the lesser games in the Pokemon franchise, sure, but there are plenty of other not good games that I could talk about, and I'd much prefer to talk about good games as opposed to bad games any day. The truth about art is the inverse of that famous opening line from Anna Karenina. Most bad art is the same, whereas most good art is good in its own individual way. So I chose to talk about Battle Revolution as opposed to something better and more interesting, in order to discuss a greater point. Even in solid franchises, it is likely that there are going to be cheap cash-ins which take advantage of strong prior material to push what is weak and unimaginative. I'm not talking about merch here, and I'm not talking about spin-offs in a completely different medium where the franchise is not proven. No, I'm talking about entries in the medium where the franchise has been thriving. Think of what happened to franchises like Jaws and Indiana Jones, or how films like Fantastic Beasts or the Hobbit trilogy were able to make incredible amounts of money despite being lesser retreads of better past work. And nowhere is this more common and damaging than in video games. While there are franchises free from this curse, such as Zelda, lousy games have been saved from flopping over and over again due to brand recognition. There are enough bad Mario spin-offs to fill a dumpster, but because they have Mario in the title, they make money. Mediocre fantasy titles that would have otherwise been completely forgotten are saved because they're part of the Final Fantasy series, and Pokemon hardly fares better. For every great spin-off, like the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, there's a spin-off that's mediocre at best. What frustrates me is that the companies never pay for it. Oh sure, a long line of subpar mainline games can erode a series' reputation, as was the case with Final Fantasy, but while fans like myself groused about FF13, it sold very well. Over 7 million copies of that game have been purchased, and bad spin-offs don't affect the series at all. Did the other mediocrity of Mario Hoops 3-on-3, or Mario and Luigi Paper Jam, or Super Mario Sticker Star affect the sales of Mario Odyssey? No, of course not. While I'm inherently against fans who act entitled, there is a certain moral responsibility that media companies, just like any other companies, have to the consumers. They don't have to cater to the fan base's every whim, but they should avoid selling low-quality products using the name of a franchise associated with high-quality products in hopes that the fans will buy it out of sheer brand loyalty. The companies should have to pay a price, but they never do.
It was an amazing attack, sacrificing itself like that, but it was the only one who went down.
I don't want to end this on that nihilistic of a note, so I suppose I should give you all something to take away from this. And I should clarify that what I want you to learn is not that you should buy Battle Revolution. Well, if you're interested and you know what you're in for, you should go ahead and buy the game. No, what I want you to take away from this is that Flash is no substitute for substance. You should be enraptured in powerful aesthetics, I encourage that, but you should always be asking yourself if there is actually anything behind the aesthetic. You might not be able to hurt the companies that continue tricking people, but you can at least stop yourself from being tricked by performing a more thorough analysis on whatever media you're being offered. You're bound to suffer that first deflation as a kid, and you're bound to suffer many more going forward. But with diligence and dedication, you can eventually stop that from happening. You can turn your disappointment into strength. So if you liked what you saw today, consider donating to my Patreon so I can produce even more content that is hopefully better than superficial. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that worthwhile stuff. Adios, comrades!